For this week's free training, we have invited our English Learner Portal colleague, Laura Gardner, in to talk to you about orienting our English learner and international immigrant families to schools. It's a little different than your regular family involvement. So take a listen to what Laura has to share with you today.
Hey everybody, this is Laura Gardner here, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about orienting your English learner and immigrant students and families. I'm going to imagine and I'm going to guess that you have some sort of process in place for orienting your students. When they start class with you, you probably orient them to the routines and some of how we quote unquote do school in America. Today I'm going to focus actually more on the families. What do you do for your English learner and immigrant families to orient them to your school and to your school district? We really can't just orient the students. The families are a really crucial component to this. It actually has a lot to do with equity, access to information and learning about how your school district runs, how one can have access to various programs. That has everything to do with equity, right? Really, the achievement gap or the opportunity gap kind of starts here, right from the beginning. So what should an orientation for families cover? You might be wondering. Well, I will name a few topics that I consider important, and then I'm also going to include a longer list in the download that you can have access to. So a couple topics that just come to mind. Of course, the school calendar, right? So here in the US, in most cases, we start in August or right after Labor Day in early September. But in many countries around the world, you start in January or you start in some other month, right? And so just explaining how the school year goes. Then we think about grade levels, right? What is kindergarten? What is first grade? What is second grade? And which grades make up elementary school versus middle school, or if you have junior high, or and which grades make up high school, right? Also attendance. In so many countries around the world, attendance isn't mandatory, but here in the US it is. And that is often a very difficult concept, I think, for students and families to kind of wrap their brain around, especially when you're talking about older students. So that usually requires a very direct, concrete explanation. What about your curriculum, right? So what subjects are students going to study, and what supports are there for English learners to help accommodate and help them access the curriculum? Meals, is food provided, and how does that work, right? How might they apply for free and reduced lunch if that's needed? And then a fun one I always think about is transportation. While it may seem obvious to us here in the States that school buses are yellow, in many countries around the world, school buses could be red, they could be blue, they could be orange, they could be any color, or in some cases, school districts around the world, they might partner with some kind of charter bus and they could look different for every single school district. So I've had situations in working with refugee families where they tried to get on the school bus thinking that it was also a source of transportation for them, for the parents, right? So all of those types of things need to be explained. And so you're probably thinking, when am I going to do this? How? What format? What does this look like? Who's responsible? Well, so I like to think of three main options. You could deliver something like this in person in a school, maybe in your school or in your district. Some staff collaborate on putting together a big in-person orientation for families that enrolled over a certain time period, throughout the summer or throughout the spring or throughout the fall, right? Because with English learners and immigrants, they're enrolling all throughout the year. So you might be able to do an in-person orientation. And of course, on the one hand, that's great because it's an opportunity to build relationships with families. Families can ask questions directly. Any kind of face-to-face interaction, human interaction is always, somewhat ideal, but there are some cons, right? So of course there's logistical cons like transportation, childcare, all of that kind of thing. It is a lot of information that you'll want to cover, so that could end up being a very long long presentation type of thing. Then, of course, the logistics. If you, like most districts, you have students, like I said, enrolling all throughout the year. So you can't only offer something like that once per year unless you're a really small district. So that could get potentially expensive and kind of time consuming. And then also, chances are that whoever is delivering the orientation, maybe it's someone from central office, someone from your ESL or ESOL department, or from your family engagement office or something like that. That's great, but at the same time, chances are the family is never going to see that person again if it's someone from central office. So you kind of want to think about who are they building their relationship with anyway if they're not going to see them, right? So a second option is some kind of handbook that's specifically for English learner immigrant families. And in the online course on immigrant family and community engagement in schools, we have a number of examples from different school districts and other parts of the country. So in a type of handbook, you would lay out, a lot of the information in, it could be fairly simple English, or hopefully you have different translated versions in a number of languages. You would have a lot of images, pictures to make it as visual as possible. But it's great because in most districts, yes, there's a student handbook and a parent handbook or something along those lines, but they're often very wordy. There's often a fair amount of legalese in there because they have to state so many things and students and families have to sign off on it. But this is something I'm talking about that's specifically geared towards your English learner and your immigrant families. What do they need to know from their lens coming in from a different country or having a different language? What's going to be new to them, right? So that's an option, having a handbook. And again, for samples of those, we include many of them in the course. And I know that people like looking at those. And then a third option I would say would be some kind of multilingual video. That's my favorite option personally. And in the course, we include a lot of examples where you've got some districts who have short video clips, a 3-minute clip of a child getting on a school bus and what that looks like, or in a small clip about lunch, and a small clip about the curriculum and things like that. And then you have other districts that do one longer video, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes. I don't think I've seen anything longer than 30 to 45 minutes, but that are then in multiple languages, and ideally a staff person speaking that language would be narrating the video, right? So that's an option. Take a look at. I hope you'll join the online course so you can see some of those examples. And also, I should say, if your school district has some sort of TV crew, or in your communications office, somebody who's tasked with taking video, oftentimes you can partner with that person or that team, and they'll help you make it look professional. Then again, most people have smartphones these days, and you could probably do a pretty good job even just with something on your smartphone, which could be better than nothing, right? So again, I just wanted to remind everybody to be thinking about, as the school year starts, be thinking about orienting your English learner and immigrant families, not just the students, and to remember that this really is a key aspect of equity right from the get-go, making sure that families understand how our school systems work, various programs, and they're not going to be able to wrap their brains around all at once. Of course, there's a lot of new information, but just some of the basics from the beginning to kind of get everybody off on the right start. So I look forward to seeing you hopefully in the course Immigrant Family and Community Engagement in Schools. But if not, I hope this bit of information was helpful to you.